My name is Nate Bourne, and I teach at Broadview Middle School. I teach 8th grade science, 6th and 7th grade STEM. So the 5 measurements that need to be measured are A through E. Measurement A measures from the lowest point on each side of the lobe of the root. Measurement B should measure the widest part of the root. Measurement C measures across from where the cusp meets the root on either side. Measurement D is the depth of the cusp itself. And so that measurement should be on a plane that's perpendicular to measurement C and measures from the point where the cusp and the root meet and extends out until that is even with the apex or the tip of the tooth. Measurement E is a diagonal measurement that is the longer side of the tooth from point A to the apex or tip. So now we're ready to actually do some practice measuring on one of our images. This is included in the appendix, and so students can practice their measurements on this. First thing that you may want to do is have students talk about in the different images. The 5mm circle is going to look different. It's going to be in different sizes, and that can spark a conversation about the scale of the photographs, and that's going to be important for them to notice as they go. The second thing that you're going to need, or to have out along with it, is one of the measurement cards, and these are included along with your measurement card that actually has the ruler and the sizes on it, and it'll be helpful to fold it over so you can lay it on the picture and actually measure as you go. The first thing you need to do is write in the specimen name, and that'll be listed on the photo. This is a tiger shark tooth, and it's from the upper 4th position. And then we need to measure the actual diameter of the circle in the photo to help figure out our equation to get the actual measurement size. So I'm going to measure across the widest part of the circle, and this is 13mm. I'm going to write that in here. I can then create my ratio. 5mm in real life is to 13mm on the photo. And then, of course, that becomes my equation. So y equals 5/13 x. And then we'll be able to use that to figure out the real measurements of this tooth, because it's been blown up to fit on the picture and be easier to measure. The next thing that you're going to want to do, and this may help some students, is to trace the root down in the jaw. And that will allow them to measure a little bit easier. Just kind of go nice and slow. Trace around these bottom lobes, and it might help to go up onto the cusp a little bit just so you can see where that is in the jaw. If you print these out in color, it's a lot easier. And then we want to go ahead and start measuring. So measurement A is the 2 lowest spots on the lobes. And so we use the ruler to measure across, and those 2 lowest spots are right at 50mm. So I write that under measurement on photo, and if they want to draw a line there, they can. They don't have to. So for measurement B, we're measuring the widest part of the root. And it's a little bit difficult to see where the root stops and the cusp of the tooth begins. So for here, it's right down in this area. And so I'm going to measure the widest part, and I'm getting 69mm. Measurement C measures where the root and the cusp actually meet. And on a tiger shark tooth, it might actually be a little bit narrower than B. Some teeth it might not. And it's actually almost the same size on this tooth. It is 68mm. And it would be very helpful at this point to actually trace a line, and you can use the edge of the ruler to do that, because you're going to need that for the D measurement. So the measurement for D is actually on a line perpendicular to C, and it measures the depth of the cusp itself. So the first thing to do is to put a dot on the picture right where the cusp and the root actually meet, and then you can draw your perpendicular line. And we like to use a piece of tagboard or maybe the edge of a piece of paper, something that's stiff and is 90 degrees. And we line it up on our C measurement line and right at that dot, so you know where you're going. And then you're going to start at the dot and trace out off the end of the tooth. and that gives us a line that's nice and perpendicular to the C measurement. So D is going to be this measurement from this dot until you're even with the apex or the point of the tooth. So if you've drawn your line up far enough, you're able to line your card back up, or the edge of your paper back up, and using that nice 90-degree angle, you can then make a mark across the line, and then it's simple as putting your ruler up against that, starting your 0 on the dot, and our D measurement here is 43 millimeters. And then the last measurement is E, and that's going to be the diagonal from the lobe to the apex or tip along the long side of the tooth. So measuring over here, you can see that's going to be significantly shorter, only around 70 millimeters. But if we measure from this side all the way across, we can see this is the longer axis of the tooth, and that actually gets us right at 80 millimeters. And so now we've taken our measurements in the photo, and we can use our ratio to calculate the real measurements. Our equation is y equals 5/13 x, and our x for each of these is going to be our measurement from the photo. So for the first one, we can just plug the 50 millimeters into x, and then we calculate that out, and our calculation gives us 19.23 millimeters. And that makes sense because this circle is a lot larger than 5. It's about 1.5 times the size of a real 5 millimeter circle, which means that the scale of this tooth is actually about, 2.5 times, is about 2.5 times the size of the actual tooth. So we see it's going to be significantly smaller. So we can continue calculating those out using the same formula. So measurement B would be 26.54 millimeters. And interestingly enough, C is 26.54 millimeters as well. And you have to remember that this photo is 2.5 times the size of the actual tooth, and we were only 1 millimeter off on our photo measurement. So it makes sense that on a much smaller scale, there's almost no difference at all. Measurement D calculates to 16.54 millimeters. And then our longest measurement, the long side of the tooth, is then going to convert to 30.77 millimeters. And if you were entering this in the Google Doc, it would be these real measurements that you would be inputting, not the photo measurements.